A wrong turn can feel like nothing, a small mistake, an extra mile, a minor delay. But sometimes a single wrong turn leads somewhere you were never meant to be. The stories you're about to hear are true accounts of people who strayed off course and found places that defied explanation. Roads that never ended, motels that weren't on any map, trails that seemed to know their names. They returned, but not the same, and some would say, not entirely at all. Story 1. The road that looped back. It was supposed to be a simple drive. Mark was on his way home from a weekend conference in a neighboring state. The plan was straightforward: stick to the interstate, grab some coffee along the way, and be home by midnight. But at some point, after crossing the county line, he hit a construction detour that forced him off the main highway. No big deal, he thought. Just a back road. I'll reconnect to the interstate soon. The GPS on his dashboard recalculated the route. The glowing screen showed a winding path through rural farmland and dense forest. Estimated time of arrival, 12:18 a.m., only 30 minutes later than before. He sighed and drove on. At first, it was uneventful. The road was narrow but paved, flanked by thick rows of trees on both sides. The occasional farmhouse flickered by in the distance, windows glowing warm against the cold night. But the farther he drove, the more isolated it became. The houses vanished, the fields disappeared. It was just endless forest now, swallowing the road whole. His phone had no signal. After 20 minutes, he noticed something strange. The road didn't have any signs. No speed limit markers, no mileposts, no names for intersecting roads, because there weren't any. Just this single ribbon of cracked asphalt stretching into darkness. The GPS flickered once, then went black. Great, Mark muttered. He tapped the screen, but it didn't respond. He tried his phone again, still no signal. He told himself to stay calm. It was just a detour. The road had to lead somewhere. Another town, a main road, anything. That's when he saw the gas station. It appeared like a beacon through the trees, a squat building with a flickering neon sign that read, "Open 24 hours." A single old-fashioned pump stood under a rusted awning. A few dim bulbs cast yellow halos on the cracked pavement. Relieved, Mark pulled in. The place looked abandoned at first glance. No other cars. No sound except the ticking of his engine cooling in the night air. But as he stepped out, he noticed the faint glow inside the convenience store. The interior lights were on. He walked to the door and peered in. A man stood behind the counter, staring straight ahead. Mark felt a strange chill crawl up his spine. Something about the man's posture, or maybe his stillness, didn't feel right. But Mark pushed the thought aside and entered. The bell above the door gave a sharp metallic ding. The man didn't move. He was tall, thin, wearing a grease-stained shirt with no name tag. His face was pale, almost gray under the buzzing fluorescent light. His eyes, fixed on Mark, didn't blink. Hey, Mark said, forcing a smile. Is there a way back to Route 19 from here? My GPS crapped out. The man didn't answer. Mark tried again. Hello? You know how to get back to the interstate? The man tilted his head slowly, like a dog hearing a distant sound. Then, in a voice flat and low, he said, "You're already on the road." Mark froze. What? The man repeated. You're already on the road. Then he smiled. Wide. Too wide. Mark backed toward the door. Okay, thanks. He left quickly, heart pounding, the man's stare burning into his back. He climbed into his car, locked the doors, and pulled out of the lot as fast as he could. The road stretched ahead, empty and dark. He drove for another 15 minutes before checking his rearview mirror. The gas station was behind him again. Same cracked pavement, same flickering sign, same pale man standing inside. Mark slammed on the brakes. He stared, unblinking, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles whitened. No, he whispered. That's not possible. He spun the car around and drove in the opposite direction. The trees blurred past. His headlights cut through the mist that had begun to gather on the road. He kept driving, pushing the speedometer past 70, 80, 90. Finally, he saw it again. The gas station. He nearly screamed. This time, the man wasn't behind the counter. He was standing outside, under the awning, as if waiting. Mark didn't stop. He blew past the station, heart hammering, sweat pouring down his back. He drove faster than he ever had, praying the road would end, that he'd see a town, a house, anything. But it never came. It was just trees, endless trees. And then the lights appeared behind him, headlights, far back at first, then closer. Another car, barreling down the same empty road. Relief washed over him until he realized the car was gaining on him too fast. Its engine roared like a beast, its high beams flared, blinding him through the mirrors. He swerved to stay on the cracked asphalt. The car behind him didn't pass. It just stayed on his tail, inches from his bumper, no matter how fast he went. Mark glanced in the mirror, and his blood ran cold. The driver wasn't human. At least, not anymore. Its face was white, stretched too long, its mouth gaping in a silent scream. Black holes where the eyes should have been. Hands, long, bone-thin fingers, gripped the steering wheel like claws. Mark screamed and floored the gas. The speedometer hit 110, 115, 120. The other car matched him. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the headlights vanished. Gone, like they were never there. Mark slowed only when he thought his lungs would burst. His car crawled forward now, engine whining. And then he saw it, the gas station. Again. But this time the lights were out, the pump was gone. The man was gone. The building sat in silence, rotting, windows shattered like a corpse left to decay. Mark pulled over and stumbled out of the car, screaming into the trees. "Where the hell am I?" The woods swallowed his voice whole. He checked his watch. It was 2:13 a.m. He had been driving for over 5 hours. He got back in the car and kept driving, praying for dawn. It never came. To this day, no one knows what happened to Mark. His car was found a month later, abandoned on a dirt road 50 miles from the highway. The tank was empty. The keys were still in the ignition. The odometer showed an extra 600 miles. But there's one more thing. One detail the police never released to the public. On the dusty back window, written in long, smeared letters, were 3 words: "Stay on the road." Story 2. The motel at the edge of town. It was supposed to be a quick stop. Rachel and her boyfriend, Tom, were on a cross-country road trip, driving from Chicago to Los Angeles. They'd been on the road for nearly 12 hours when exhaustion hit. It was close to midnight, and the highway was nothing but an endless ribbon of black asphalt cutting through the desert. "Let's just find a place to crash," Tom muttered, rubbing his eyes. Rachel agreed. Her back ached from sitting so long, and her phone had barely 1 bar of signal. They searched for motels on the GPS, but the screen froze and went blank. Tom cursed under his breath. That's when they saw it. A neon sign flickered faintly on the horizon. Moonlight Motel, vacancy. The sign buzzed as they approached, its faded pink letters glowing weakly against the dark sky. The motel sat at the end of a cracked driveway, a long, single-story building with peeling white paint and a row of doors, each numbered in rusted metal. A single car, a beat-up station wagon, was parked near the far end. Rachel hesitated. "This place looks old." Tom shrugged. "It's either this or sleeping in the car. Come on." They pulled into the lot. The office door creaked as Tom pushed it open. Inside, a dim yellow bulb hung overhead, casting long shadows across the room. Behind the counter sat a man, thin, pale, wearing a button-up shirt stained at the collar. His eyes were flat and gray, his smile slow and deliberate. "Evening," he said, voice low and scratchy. Tom returned the smile awkwardly. Yeah. Just need a room for the night." The man didn't respond right away. He stared at them for a long moment before turning to grab a key from the wall. It was old brass, attached to a faded plastic tag that read Room 6. "That'll be $45, the man said. Tom handed him cash. No receipt. No paperwork. "Enjoy your stay," the clerk whispered as he slid the key across the counter. Rachel noticed something strange as they left the office. There was a mirror on the wall behind the clerk, but it didn't reflect him. Just the counter. She tried to shake it off. Room 6 was near the middle of the building. The door stuck when Tom tried to open it, and when it finally gave, the smell hit them. Musty, damp, with a faint metallic tang like rust or blood. Inside, the room looked like it hadn't changed since the 1960s. Faded floral wallpaper peeled in strips. The carpet was stained. The lamp on the nightstand cast a sickly yellow light. There was no TV, no clock, no phone. "This is creepy," Rachel whispered. "It's just old," Tom said, dropping his bag on the bed. The springs groaned under his weight. They showered quickly, ice-cold water, no matter how long they let it run, and crawled into bed. Rachel couldn't sleep. The silence was too heavy, like the air itself was pressing down on her. Every now and then, she swore she heard something faint through the thin walls. Whispers. At first, she thought it was Tom mumbling in his sleep. But when she leaned closer, she realized his breathing was deep and even. The whispers were coming from the vent. Rachel froze, heart pounding. The voice was soft, almost childlike. She pressed her ear closer to the metal grate. Rachel? Her blood ran cold. She shook Tom awake. "Tom, someone just said my name." Tom groaned, rubbing his eyes. "What? You're just tired." The whisper came again, louder this time, from inside the vent. "Rachel, come play." Tom sat up, eyes wide now. "What the hell?" Then the light flickered, once, twice, and the whispers multiplied, voices, dozens of them, whispering, giggling, calling names they didn't know. Some were deep and guttural, others high-pitched like laughter through broken teeth. Rachel clutched Tom's arm. "We need to leave, now." They grabbed their bags and bolted for the door. But when Tom yanked it open, his breath caught. The parking lot wasn't there. Instead, the door opened into a long, narrow hallway lined with doors. More motel rooms, identical to theirs. "What the? Where's the car?" Tom shouted. Rachel pulled him down the hallway, panic clawing at her chest. They ran past door after door, but every time they tried one, it opened to the same room they just left. Same bed, same lamp, same stained carpet. The whispers followed them, louder now, echoing through the walls, the floors, the air itself. "Stay with us. Don't leave." The lights overhead flickered violently as they ran. And then, ahead of them, they saw the clerk. He stood perfectly still in the middle of the hallway, smiling that slow, unnatural smile. His gray eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "You can't leave," he said softly. Tom lunged forward, shoving past him. For a split second, his hand went through the man's arm like it wasn't even solid. The clerk's grin widened. They kept running. The hallway stretched on forever. The lights blew out one by one behind them with sharp pops, plunging everything into darkness. Then, suddenly, they burst through a door and stumbled outside. The parking lot was there. The car. The neon sign buzzing in the distance. They didn't look back. Tom floored the gas, tires screeching against cracked pavement. The motel vanished in the rearview mirror like it had never been there. They drove for hours without speaking. Finally, when they stopped at a diner near sunrise, Rachel pulled out her phone. Her hands shook as she typed "Moonlight Motel" into Google. Nothing. No listings. No history. No record it had ever existed. Tom laughed nervously. Maybe it shut down years ago. Rachel didn't answer, because when she opened her bag, stuffed in the side pocket was the key to room 6. And tied to it with a red ribbon was a strip of old floral wallpaper, exactly like the one peeling from the motel walls. Story 3, the trail that wasn't there yesterday. Dylan had been hiking for years. National parks, rugged mountains, hidden waterfalls. He'd seen it all. For him, the woods weren't scary. They were home. Which is why what happened that day still doesn't make sense. It was early September when he decided to take a solo trip to Black Hollow National Park. The place was beautiful but quiet. Hardly any tourists ventured that deep into the state. He liked it that way. He checked in at the ranger station, signed the logbook, and hit the main trail around 8 a.m. The sky was clear, the sun bright, and the air cool enough to make the hike pleasant. Everything felt normal. For the first few miles, Dylan stuck to the main path. He stopped occasionally to snap photos of mossy boulders and the occasional deer darting through the brush. Then, around midday, he saw it. A trail he didn't remember from the map. It was narrow, almost hidden behind a cluster of pines. No marker, no sign, but the ground was clearly worn, like something or someone had walked it many times. He frowned, pulling out the folded park map. Nothing. The official trails were marked in red, but there was no indication of a side path here. Maybe it was an old service road, he thought, or maybe just a deer trail. Still, curiosity tugged at him. He checked his GPS. Signal was weak, but holding. The compass arrow showed the new trail veered slightly east, roughly parallel to the main route. "I'll just follow it for a bit," Dylan muttered. "See where it goes." The path sloped downward, deeper into the woods. The trees here were thicker, their branches clawing overhead like bony fingers, blocking out the sun. Within minutes, the temperature seemed to drop. Something felt off. The forest was too quiet. No wind, no birds, no insects. Just the crunch of his boots on dead leaves. He told himself he was imagining it. Then he noticed the trees. They leaned inward. Not naturally, like they'd grown toward the trail, bending slightly as if watching whoever walked through. Their bark was dark, almost black in places, and streaked with something that looked disturbingly like dried sap or old blood. After 30 minutes, Dylan realized he hadn't seen the sky in a while. The canopy was so thick it swallowed the sunlight whole, leaving only a dim green glow. And then he saw the cabin. It appeared in a small clearing at the bottom of a slope, a squat, one-room structure with warped wooden walls and a sagging roof. No smoke from the chimney, no sound. Dylan froze. The place looked ancient, like it had been rotting in that clearing for decades. He almost turned back. Almost. But something about it pulled him forward. The door was slightly ajar, creaking softly as the breeze. Wait, there hadn't been a breeze all day. Dylan swallowed hard and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and mold. The floorboards groaned under his weight. There was almost no furniture, just a broken chair in the corner and a small table in the center of the room. On the table lay a photograph. Dylan froze. The photo was old, its edges curled and yellowed, but the image was clear. A man standing on a forest trail, backpack slung over one shoulder, staring straight at the camera. It was Dylan. He looked down at his clothes. Same jacket, same boots, even the same expression. His heart hammered against his ribs. He turned the photo over with shaking hands. On the back, in neat black ink, was a date. Today's date. No, he whispered. He dropped the photo and bolted for the door. The woods outside seemed darker now, the trees pressing closer, the path twisting like a snake. He ran uphill, lungs burning, glancing over his shoulder every few steps. That's when he saw them. Figures. At first, he thought they were tree trunks, tall, thin, unmoving, but then they shifted, just slightly, enough for him to see the pale gray of their faces. There were 3, maybe 4, standing just beyond the clearing, half hidden in shadow, watching him. Jesus Christ, Dylan whispered, backing away. The figures didn't follow, they just stared. He turned and ran. Branches whipped his arms. Roots clawed at his boots. The trail stretched on forever, twisting and looping, with never leading back to where he started. His GPS was dead. His phone showed nothing but static when he tried the camera. And then through the trees, he saw light. Relief surged through him as he burst out of the woods, onto the main trail. He collapsed to his knees, gasping, clutching at the dirt like it was salvation. The sun was setting now, painting the sky orange and red. He stumbled back toward the ranger station, shaking so hard he could barely walk. When he arrived, the ranger looked surprised. "You were gone a while," he said, flipping open the logbook. Dylan blinked. "A while? It's still Sunday, right?" The ranger frowned. "Sunday? Sun? It's Wednesday." Dylan stared at him, throat dry, mind reeling. He wanted to argue, but when he looked down at his hands, he saw dirt under his nails, dried blood on his sleeve. And when he opened his backpack to grab water, he saw the photo, the same one from the cabin. But this time, the ink on the back was smeared. The date was still there, and below it, a single sentence written in jagged letters, "You shouldn't have left." One wrong turn can feel like nothing in the moment, but these stories remind us that the smallest choices can lead to the darkest places. The next time you're on an empty road, staring at a glowing motel sign, or tempted by a trail you've never seen before, remember what you've heard tonight. Some paths aren't meant to be found, and if you take them, you might never come back the same.